You know that one ayah that says God is closer to you than your jugular vein? Listen, do you know what that whole ayah means? If you just take the opposite of that meaning, of that whole ayah, because sometimes when you take the opposite of something, you actually find the meaning of the actual thing. So God is closer to you than your jugular vein, which means that your own body is further from you than God is to you. Do you know what that means, bro? Do you know what that means? So the other day, not the other day, today actually, I was reading this thing, right? I was reading this thing that I feel like if I share it, a lot of you guys are going to be like, what are you talking about, bro? But just hear me out, okay? Just hear me out. So there's this little kid. He was praying as a Muslim. He was basically a Muslim and he was praying. You know the Muslim prayer that we pray? This kid was praying and then he kind of got frustrated, right? So he goes to his dad and then he says to his dad, he's like, Baba, listen, I'm praying all my prayers. I'm making dua and all that stuff. But then for some reason my dua never gets accepted, so I feel like this whole prayer thing is not really working for me. So what his dad tells him, his dad was actually being patient with him. He's not one of those people that are like, Habibi, you just made a big sin, you said this, this and that, now you're gonna go to hell. So basically he gave him something that was so profound. So basically he told him, he was like, listen, son, God is in you and you are in God. Just like how you have a bubble, a droplet of water, this droplet of water is still part of the ocean. Even if you take it out, it's still part of the ocean. So this droplet is still the ocean. That's the analogy that he gave him. So he also said, he was like, just like how in the Quran it says, God is closer to you than your jugular vein, which means that your own body is further from you than God is to you. Now what does that mean? Does this mean that you right now, the one that's watching me, you're basically God? Are you like Fir'aun that's basically coming outside and saying, I am God, so worship me? That's not what it means. So this has such a great misunderstanding in the entire world. People think that when people talk like this, it's like we're saying that you are God. That's not what we're saying, Habibi. Even I have to like, it's such a taboo topic, I have to even like make my voice quiet just so that you don't get in trouble. But listen, when we say there's La ilaha illallah, back in the day when people heard the word La ilaha illallah, it meant that there's nothing that is worthy of your attention except Allah. It also means that there is nothing in the world except Allah. That's why it says that the entire world is gonna get destroyed except Allah's face, which is gonna remain. Allah is the only one that's gonna remain. And bro, just understanding this, it just does something to you, because it's gonna feel like this is something so familiar to you. It's gonna feel like you're going back to your roots, you're going back to your fitrah, realizing that wherever you look, you see the manifestation of Allah. And this is in the Quran, this is not from my own words too. So listen, there's this thing that we talk about, it's called fana, which is basically annihilation, which is basically almost like the death of the ego. So there is this saying that says, die before you die. When we're saying that you are God, you're part of God, and then God is part of you, like that's why we say inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. When we're saying all this stuff, it doesn't mean that your ego or yourself or your mind is the God. That's not what we're saying. We're saying there's a veil that's in your heart right now that's blocking you from witnessing the power of God within you. So how do you remove this veil from within you, just so that you reach this state of fana, the state of annihilation, so that the only thing that's flowing through you is just Allah, and it's just the light. How do you do that? So there is this story in the Quran about Musa alayhi salam, when he saw like the burning fire in the mountain, and then he went to the burning fire, and the first thing that happened to him is that he became unconscious. Why did he become unconscious? Like, if you just look at that whole story and you look at it from a point of view of symbolism, what does it symbolize? It symbolizes that when you get closer to this light, what's supposed to be happening to you is that you're supposed to literally get annihilated. Like, you're supposed to have a death within you. You're supposed to die before your physical body dies. So how do you do that, bro? Again, just get closer to the light. There's a hadith that basically says that when my servant gets closer to me through the obligatory actions, and then gets closer to me through the voluntary actions, eventually what happens is that I become the eyes in which he sees, the ears in which he hears, and then the hands and the feet in which he does things with. What does that mean, bro? It means that in order for you to basically have this annihilation of the ego, this killing of the ego, this separation actually from the ego, you get closer to Allah through the acts that He told you to get closer in. Now this doesn't mean that you have to go and you do a lot of work and stuff like that, because remember that like It's not like you finding Allah, it's just you that realizing that it's always been here. Because Allah's always been here. It's just your awareness has not been close to it. So what I noticed is that just today actually, when I was praying actually in the Masjid al-Nabawi. And so remember that video that I made about how to pray correctly and stuff like that? I told you guys that you need to, like, when you're doing ruku' or when you're doing sujood, even when you're doing, like, when you're standing, it's better to do it for longer. Like, don't just go ruku' and then go up immediately and do everything so fast. Do it for longer. Like, do it for longer, bro. So I was in the prayer and this imam that was praying, he was actually, like, the ruku', he was doing it for so long. The sujood, he was doing it for so long. So what I noticed is that in the moment that I was doing it for so long, eventually, when I would get up, I would notice that it almost feels like if I don't take a deep breath, I would become unconscious, like I would literally faint. And just after that, literally after that, I would hear the story about Musa alayhi salam. Like I get reminded of it, about how when he saw the burning flame and then he went closer to the light, he just fell down unconscious. But the beauty of it too is that the more I kept doing it, the more I literally felt like there was like an annihilation happening within me, to the point that there was nothing left within me except the fact that Allah is always watching me in this moment. And the more I kept feeling like Allah is watching me in this moment, and my brain and my mind, everything within me, like the false self was going away, it felt like the only thing that was like flowing through me was just this light, and it felt so beautiful. That's why in Ramadan, especially in Ramadan, even outside of it, because this video is obviously going to be on the internet, like, pray Qiyamul Layl and do ruku' for a long time, do sujood for a long time. You'll feel this effect, and this effect is so beautiful, bro, because what's happening is that through the body, you're silencing the mind. And then when you silence the mind, the only thing that's left within you is just the light of Allah, and that's it. Because this light of Allah is already within you. It's already within you. And don't be telling me that, no, this stuff is like shirk and stuff. Listen, read the Quran yourself. Read these things yourself. You'll notice that this, in my opinion, bro, this is the thing that every single Muslim needs. Because a lot of you guys, your ego is like taking a hold of you way too much, to the point that even when you go back to the Quran and then you're reciting all these ayat, you're basically understanding them, you're looking at them from a point of view of ego. So it's not even you, it's the false you. So when the false you dies or gets tamed, you'll notice that the only thing that's left is just the light of Allah. And bro, this is such a beautiful state to be in, because at this point, again, I always say this, and this is what my whole channel is actually just becoming about, which is that the more you do this, and the more that just only the light of Allah is flowing through you, do you really think that now at this point you can take action that's bad for you? You can't take action that's bad for you at this point. Anything that you do at this point is good. And by the way, I know my screen is shaking, but listen, even if the screen is shaking, the stuff that I'm giving you right now is so important. Once again, the analogy is that just like a droplet of water that came from the ocean is still a part of the ocean, this is what it means. This is what it means. That's the analogy. That's why when someone dies, we say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Like, we are to Allah, and to Allah we belong, and to Allah we're coming back. That's the entire thing. We came here for this test. And by the way, there's a hadith that says that, like, hadith Qudsi, where Allah was saying that I was a treasure that's within the human heart. Within the human heart. So once you find it, once you find this thing that's within you, you literally look at it like it's such a treasure. It's a treasure, because this is what every human is trying to do. The reason why you're trying to make a lot of money, the reason why you're trying to find like a beautiful wife or find a beautiful house and all that stuff, is because you want the qualities of this thing. This being that's within you. You have these, like, you want to go back to these qualities. You want to silence the mind, get rid of the mind, so you can go back to these qualities. So I'm telling you that once you go back to the one, to the creator, to the being, and then you start to feel like you're already one within it, like one with it, which means that your ego is like tamed. Once you do that, everything else in your life becomes so much more easier to attain. Like, money becomes easy. Finding a wife becomes easy. Doing anything becomes easy. And so, I feel like this is the entire purpose, man. Like, we came from Allah, and then we were put on this earth to the point that you feel like you're falling asleep, and then you forget who your real creator, the real being is. So then you fall into this deep sleep, and eventually you wake up. Death is what wakes you up. What I'm trying to say is that die before you die. And how do you do that? Realize, bro, Just realize that this being is already within you, closer to you than your jugular vein, closer to you than your body is to you. Just realize that. Because once you realize that, automatically you'll want to go and pray more. Whether you're a Muslim or a non-Muslim, you'll just want to go and you pray more. And then once you do that, you'll realize that you'll have such a whole different meaning on the statement of La ilaha illallah, because that's the only truth in the world. La ilaha illallah.